Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast with Bryce Johnson. It's a show that unpacks sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. Enjoy inspiring conversations and thought-provoking interviews. You'll hear stories from people that will inspire, challenge, and encourage you. Now, from the Unpacking It studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, uniting sports fans everywhere, here is Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to Unpacking It, where we unpack sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. I'm Bryce Johnson. Check out our website, unpackingit.com. Also, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, rate, review, and I know you're going to love today's episode as we will be joined by Mark Herzlich. Such an inspiring story, such an awesome guy, down to earth, really cool, and you're going to love the conversation. Before we get to him, let me ask you this. Do you need to get your own health insurance? Well, go to healthmarketgenius.com. Know your options. Go to healthmarketgenius.com. Support them as they support us. Also, you can check out our website and subscribe to our weekday email devotional. We take sports stories related to the Bible, and we send them out for free each day, Monday through Friday. And you can sign up for free on our website. And if you already subscribe, we encourage you to forward it on and encourage others to subscribe to the free devotional. And we also have devotionals available in the Bible app. So if you have the Bible app on your phone, just search Unpack This. Mark Herzlich, he's a college football analyst at ESPN, just finished up his first year with the ACC network. I asked him all about that. And he's also a cancer survivor and just an inspiring, incredible story. He was a stud at Boston College. He was playing with Luke Kuechly, another stud linebacker. I'll ask him about him as well. And Mark was expected to be a first-round draft pick. He ends up getting cancer. He fights through it and returns to football, but teams were nervous about drafting him. So he ends up going undrafted. He ends up in New York with the Giants, plays for Tom Coughlin, wins a Super Bowl, plays 7 years in the league, and man, just so cool to think all that he was able to accomplish following his cancer and having to battle through that. And so we talk all about that. And really, I think his perspective is so interesting right now as we face the coronavirus, as many people are sick and dealing with the effects of the virus. And I think there are some parallels to a cancer battle and some of the things that you learn through that. And so we hear about that from Mark, the perspective that he has. And I think he'll be a real encouragement to everyone listening today. And I encourage you to stick around at the end of the conversation. I got some more thoughts on one of the topics that we discuss, and this idea of really God's role in all of this current situation. You know, kind of where is God? What's going on? And a lot of questions get asked. And, you know, some people like to come out and say that this is, you know, what's happening in our world right now is God's wrath or his judgment. And on one end, we don't know fully what God's up to. And so to try to think or know, oh, this is what God's doing. But my message for us today really is that God loves us and that God meets us in this place of fear and worry and pain. And he loves us and he comforts us. And he will use this situation for good. He's a good God and a faithful God. He is in control. And we do live in a broken world. There is sin, there is death, there is disease, and the reality is we're all going to die at some point. And what it comes down to is that we celebrate Easter weekend, that we put our hope and trust in the saving power of Jesus, that he went to the cross, he defeated death, he defeated sin, so that we can be reunited with God in right relationship with him, both now and for eternity. And even if we get a disease this side of heaven. Ultimately, we will be healed, and we will have a resurrected body in heaven for eternity with God. And that's what we cling to. That's the hope that we cling to. And, is there an ultimate judgment? Absolutely. I believe that. And so we have the opportunity to receive this free gift of grace, this free gift of salvation in Christ. And for those that don't, yes, there is an ultimate judgment. And so those that are in Christ and receive the good news of Jesus, we get to be with him forever. Those that don't want to be with God, God's not going to make them. He's not going to make them be with him. But right now in this earth, there is, there's some confusion and there is disease and all that we're dealing with. But I think we have to focus on the loving God and that we know, the loving God who meets us in this place. And so we talk a little bit about that with Mark, and so I just want to give you a little background to kind of set that up a little bit, because I don't believe in a vengeful God. I believe in a just God and a God who allows us to choose him and love him freely. That love is a free choice to love him. So let's jump in. It's a great conversation. It's deep. There's a lot there, a lot of layers, and I encourage you to stick around until the very end as well. So it's Mark Herzlich right here on Unpacking It.
Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
Joining us right now on Unpacking It is Mark Herzlich, NFL, college football analyst, cancer survivor, and author of What It Takes. And, excited to have him on the show today. And, Mark, how are you? I know there's a lot going on in the world right now, but how are you and your family doing?
We're good. We're staying safe. We are just thankful and very blessed that we have our health and we have each other right now.
Absolutely. So as you kind of address the current situation, what maybe principles or lessons that you learned during your cancer battle that can actually be an encouragement to those dealing with adversity today, but especially with so many affected specifically by the coronavirus?
I think one of the things is that you're not alone, right? That's the biggest point of emphasis for anyone going through this right now. Unfortunately, they're not alone, but that's the case, is that, they're going through something right now that's devastating. When I got diagnosed with cancer, I felt like I was isolated in a little box myself. It was my battle that I was fighting alone. And I realized that, although no one else could actually was going to carry the disease for me, I was able to use my community in ways of, getting food or getting encouragement or just getting prayer that really helped me go through it. So first thing is that with everyone right now, whether you unfortunately have the illness, whether you have a loved one who has it, whether you are just hunkered down in your house trying to avoid getting it, whether you're protecting everything, you're not alone. Everyone's in this together. So I think that's one thing that any sort of disease does, and what it did in my case with cancer is that you become unified with people that you never thought you'd be unified with. And there's people all over the entire world that all of a sudden, regardless of language or religion or demographic or how much money you have, everyone's all of a sudden, okay, we are working together to try to beat this. So, I think that's just an encouraging note right off the bat where, yes, you have a lot of fears that might be unique to yourself and to your own situation, but you are not alone.
Wow. No, it's a great perspective. And what about just for you personally, because you're experiencing this as well, and you sound like you're doing well and your family's doing okay, but what has maybe been on your mind or heart just personally during this time, and maybe even how has your faith been growing or being challenged during this time?
Yeah, well, I think the initial aspect for me in terms of just my faith alone is always the question, why, right? I think that becomes a common question for everybody amongst stuff like this. Why is this happening, or why is this happening to me, or why is this not happening to me? And I think that the real question to turn from why is turned to who, right? Anytime you have that question, why, is you turn it to who, and who is really in charge, and who is, really the final word, and that's God, and that's Jesus. And so anytime that I start to let that why creep into my mind, I automatically just say, stop, don't get me started on this why. Let's go to who, and let's go to who is ultimately in charge. And I think that when I first started my battle with cancer, I was a baby Christian. I had kind of decided, okay, there's got to be something more, because it just everything's too complicated to have it be simple. So there's got to be something more. And I believe there was a God, and I believe in Jesus, and I believe that he, died to save our sins. But I was very new in my Christianity. And when I got diagnosed with cancer, it just started those why questions. And constantly, over and over again, people would remind me to go back to that who, and I would dive into the scripture. And one place in the Bible basically says, cast all your anxiety on me because I love you. And right now, anxiety is going to fill all of us regardless. My wife went to the grocery store this morning because we ran out of everything. We finally depleted our sources. She has the mask and the gloves on, and she gets to the car in the driveway, and we're Lysol disinfecting all the food items as they come out of the bags, and then from the bags into like I have a 2-year-old son. He has a little wagon. We put it in the wagon and pulled it into the house, and then put it in the fridge. I mean, it's just like the anxiety that comes with every little unseeable germ right now can really be paralyzing. And so when you throw that anxiety up to God and says, hey, look, I can't do this. Like, I just can't do this by myself. There's no way that I can wake up every single morning analyzing every single microbe that floats around my house. I just can't do it. You got to take that from me. So it's a way of just realizing, I feel like every now and then God uses things, right? He doesn't cause this. He doesn't cause pandemics. He doesn't cause illnesses, but he uses things to remind us, say, hey, look, life is just not in any of our controls, and it's in his control ultimately. And ultimately, he's going to rid the earth of this, and then we will be in a reparation period.
No, that's a great word. And I think the key for us, when the anxiety, the fear comes, we have to replace that with his peace, with his joy,
yes,
with his hope. Otherwise, those feelings just take over. And like you said, they can paralyze us very quickly. Going back to your story specifically, because I think a lot of people are in this situation where they're either going to lean into God, and maybe they've never had a relationship with him or don't understand fully who God is, but they're curious right now. It's kind of fertile ground for a lot of people, because there is a lot of pain and hurt and confusion, and they're looking for answers. But for you, when you get the cancer diagnosis, you can either lean in to him and pursue him for strength and power and hope through that, or go the other way and be angry and have those feelings. And I think people are battling again with that side of things too: anxiety, fear, anger. So going back to your experience, how do you kind of navigate those perspectives?
Yeah, I just would say that in the beginning, I guess day one when I was diagnosed, you start to just see all the negative consequences of whatever information is out there, whatever diagnosis you're just given, whatever thing is happened to you. You start to see those negative influences flood your brain, and the devil tries to put these things in your brain because he wants to make you tired. He wants to wear you out, right? Like, how much harder is it? Those two options you just gave. Okay, do I fight against it? Do I be angry about it? Do I just keep banging my head against the wall, like worrying? It's so much more tiring to do that, like, rather than just like turning towards the peace that God provides. For me, literally, I get home from the doctor's office, I go and lay in my bed, and I'm in a junior in college going into my senior year. So, if you picture, it was still my high school bedroom, right? So like I had, a bookcase with trophies on it, and like I had, I hadn't cleaned out my room since I was 6, so I had like swim team trophies and I was actually on the diving team, and nice. I was on like a diving. I got like 6th place, but I kept the 6th place medal. So I had all that stuff on the wall.
The ribbons from swim team.
The ribbons, right? Yeah,
I know the ribbons.
I had like the green ribbons that you can't make red, blue, or yellow or whatever they were. So you got green.
I remember those.
So anyway, so those are on the shelf, and there's a picture of me playing football in high school, and I remember. So I was diagnosed with bone cancer in my left femur, and I'm looking at this picture, and I'm carrying the football, I'm running, and my left leg is planted in the ground. And I remember just looking at that picture, and my mind just completely changing from, why is this happening to me? Kind of what did I do to deserve this? I must have done something wrong, because that's a punishment. You get an illness and you're just punished because you couldn't ask for it. It's not like, I put my head in a microwave, for 3 minutes every day when I was a kid and got like weird sort of like radon stuff. This just happened to me. And so I started thinking I must have done something on the, I guess, spiritual realm. And then I looked at that picture and I just said, no, like that can't be it. That can't be what it is, because what little I know about God is that he doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't do those things anymore. And there's a new covenant, and we have Jesus Christ who died for our sins. So for what little I knew, I just knew that doesn't seem right. There's no way this many people would believe that this is the good news of the word if that's how it works. It just wouldn't make sense. So I just okay, I'm going to start fighting, and not fighting against God, but fighting with God against this cancer. And so it was like a mental shift. I looked at that picture and I saw that leg. I said, this leg right here, this is not going to be what kills me. This is not going to be what takes me out, and it's not going to be what destroys me. So, I kind of used that as an emblem of that moment. And I still have that picture hanging in my office right now. And it's just, it's a reminder all the time at, how, man, things are out of your control so much of the time, and how it's just so much easier to give up some of that control. So that's kind of initially how I came to be. But one thing that did happen, which I see, you see opportunity. Anytime that there's anything happens, God is like the ultimate optimist, right? Like he'll look at a situation and everybody will be, man, this is the worst. Yeah. Like it's the worst. And he'll be like, let me see if I can figure out some way to use this in a good way. Wow. Right. And so like there's an opportunity. There was an opportunity when I was diagnosed, and it was an opportunity for me to let fear become a real thing in my life. And I think that, when we look back at the Old Testament, you look in the Bible and you talk about the fear of God, right? And I think it's a different, not like necessarily being just scared of him. That's not how we think anymore. And there was lessons that were taught in the Old Testament. But what we think about right now is a fear being something that you kind of embrace, is right. You're able to feel something. And so often, especially, with us men, and I'm talking for myself, but we take our emotions and we compartmentalize them into like anger or joy, right? You're either happy or you're mad about something. And a lot of times when you're mad, like you let the anger come out because really, you're either scared of something, or you're embarrassed about something, or something's like made you sad. And for me, I guess I'd never really experienced real fear before. And I started to fear for what was going to happen to me. And that fear, it really opened a door to allowing God to enter. And it's kind of a weird way of coming to God, I guess. But I think a lot of times for a lot of people, when they really desperately need something and realize it's completely out of their control, fear starts to enter into them, and they say, "Hey, look, just in case you are real, let's do this thing." And they get so pleasantly surprised because their fear goes away and it turns into something of strength. That fear. How can fear turn into strength? But God is able to do that.
Man, no, it's a powerful words, and I'm thinking too as I'm listening to you, when we recognize God's love in that, and like because the love casts out the fear,
yes.
and the humility of getting to that point too of, man, I know I can't do this in my own strength. Like this is way beyond anything that I can handle, and that's where God's love then comes in. So specifically with that, what did you learn then and even now just about his love?
Yeah. Well, I mean, his love is unbelievable, and I think I have a tough time. I had a tough time understanding it really until I had a son of my own. Yeah. And I talk to guys and try to just figure out the best way, or girls, and try to figure out the best way of explaining it to people who do not have kids. And there's ways to go about it. But for people who do have kids, I have a 2-year-old son who is off the wall bonkers, and especially being kept in the house and quarantined. We have padded mats in our basement now, so we can just roll around and jump around and tumble. But there's this sense of like, you could make me upset, but like I could never change from love to hate. There can just that can never even creep anywhere near that line, right? The love is just, it's so far one way that there's nothing in the world that he could do or say or think or become, right? That becomes a fear. What is my kid going to become when he grows up? Is he going to make something of himself? Is he going to make me proud? Whether you're proud or not, that love is still there, right? So
unconditional.
So I look at God, and then when I look at his love for us, you can go to your Father in heaven and just be like, look, you need to hold me, right? My son right now, he's in a phase where he'll be like, Mom, hold me, like, Dad, hold me, and just like we hold him and pick him up, and like he's good, and like are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. And like I feel like that's how God is, and we can take some of that worry and that pain and that fear away. But I do, the option that he does give us is to go to him and say, hold me, right? You got to do that. And I think that's the part that we miss so often, because we are either too proud or think we're too strong, or think we, can handle things ourselves, where we just don't go and say, hold me. And sometimes you just got to look at God and say, bro, you got to hold me. Hold me, God.
That's right. And really, we don't like adversity. We don't want adversity, but that's when we get to that place where we say, hold me. And God delivers, and God comforts, and God meets us in that place, and we experience his love. And so in many ways, this whole situation that we're dealing with as a world, it's devastating, and we hate it, but I'm also encouraged because I know people are turning to God, and he's right there to meet them. And that brings me a lot of excitement and joy in the midst of everything going on. And then to hear your story too, with, a lot of people get cancer too, and a similar experience happens, and God delivers. When we seek him, when we search for him, when we cry out to him, he answers us, and it's powerful stuff. So I appreciate you sharing your experience with that. Yeah, we could talk all day about God's love, and it wouldn't be enough. But I'm with you too. I have got an 8-month-old daughter, and and my understanding of God's view of me has definitely changed since looking through the lens of my perspective of her, and especially just my desire for her to do what keeps her safe. And like, she doesn't always understand why I'm saying, hey, don't drink the water in the bathtub. Like, she doesn't get it right now. If I just don't want her to drink the water in the bathtub, not because I'm trying to keep her from having fun or whatever. And so you just kind of recognize that too.
Yeah, and the other side of it too, rather than just like the correcting, is you really start to understand that there's no way God puts this pain on people. No. This sickness, the illness, because the amount of anguish you feel when your child gets hurt. Could you imagine inflicting pain on your child, and that feeling, just purposefully inflicting a harm on your child? And I think that that obviously, my wife and I, besides cancer stuff, we do a lot of work. She's a domestic violence survivor, and so we do a lot of work in that area too. And it just, you just want these people, mostly men, to just feel that love of Jesus, right? Because when they can feel that love, it can help curb any of that anger. But that's a whole different topic. But when you think about that kind of infliction of pain on the one you love the most, that God would never do that, right? He just is too good to do that. So I think that's a reminder anytime where it starts to creep in our mind, well, God, why are you doing this to me? God, there's no way he could possibly be doing this to you.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there have been people that have come out and said, the virus is God's judgment and all that sort of thing. And ultimately he is the final judge, and we're all going to die here on earth. And so that is the end result of a broken world and a sinful world, and what happened in the garden and all of that. But ultimately, God's love supersedes all of that. And to me, the message right now in the midst of it all is turn to God because he loves you, not because he's this vengeful God trying to hurt a bunch of people, to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's just, to me, that's also misguided. Yeah.
Yeah, well, to that point, too, read the end of the book.
That's right.
Revelation makes it pretty clear this is not what it's going to look like. You're going to know.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to know.
Exactly. And God is using this disappointment for a lot of good. There's a lot of good that is taking place in homes, personally, individually with people, but even I think in a larger scale, too. A lot of good's going to come out of it. It's hard to see in the moment and all that, but
absolutely.
But again, God's bigger than all of this. So I've had a prayer on my whiteboard, just continually praying that and seeing God's light shine through right now. And it's been cool to see. So, man, I appreciate your heart and thoughts on that for sure. Let's talk a little broadcasting and football as well.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, your first year in broadcasting. What were the joys? What were the challenges that you experienced?
Well, I think it brought a lot of joy. It was interesting. I didn't know exactly how much I would like it when I first started because there was always the thought of, gosh, man, like I'm talking about it, I'm not playing it. I'm talking about other people doing it, and my whole life, I've just been playing. And one thing that drew me to broadcasting was like when my story was shared through television, through ESPN, when people were able to hear my battle with cancer and overcoming it, I was like, man, the platform that provided. And so I kind of made a rule for myself. It's like anytime I could share light and God's light during a broadcast, I would do it. And so that would become one of both the biggest challenge, but also one of the best things that happened. And one of my favorite games we called this year was probably one of the worst blowouts we had. But Clemson played Wofford, and they were up by 45 points at halftime. That week, was able to talk to Trevor Lawrence, and he had mentioned something. You talk to these players, and he mentioned something about, man, I felt so blessed to do this, and a little bell went off in my head, and I said, I'm just going to dig a little bit. And I said, hey, like, are you a Christian? And how does that affect, your play? And he said, yeah, I am. And he told me this story about a third string on their team named Darian Renter, who basically has been their team pastor. He is taking guys, baptized them over the summer, brought them to God. And I thought it was really kind of cool and was able to, talk about this on air because, it's something that makes Trevor Lawrence great. He's able to take a lot of his anxiety, a lot of the things that,
pressure.
The pressure, the need to make every throw and kind of put them away. And then, was able to talk about this guy who doesn't really ever see the field, Darian Renter, but he makes one of the biggest impacts on the team. So, like to me, that's what I love about, some of these college games and these college, guys, because these are the last years really of their growth as men, right? Before your brain kind of gets fully developed. These are the last formative years of their adolescence. And a lot of these coaches just are imparting such great wisdom on them. And, I think that's something really cool that we don't talk about enough, I think, in the broadcasting business, but, hearing some of these philosophies that these really good coaches have, that was some of my favorite parts about it.
Yeah, that's neat because a lot of times I'll ask guys, they love just being around the X's and O's, but to actually be around the people and the stories, and I think that's what ultimately means more anyway. So that's cool. That's cool to hear that you're able to embrace that.
Yeah, and also too, I like lifting in all the gyms. We go into all the places we go. Me and my play-by-play guy, Chris Cotter, he is a meathead, and we go and we lift weights in all the gyms. So those are fun too.
Nice, I love it. Are you still putting up the same as you did when you were playing, or?
Oh no, not quite. But I it's funny. So since we've been quarantined, I've realized that I'm not as great at sticking to my diet when I'm quarantined, and so I decided to go in bulking mode. So I've been throwing up some weight recently.
Nice. The worst part for me, so I was joking with you about the swimming earlier. So I grew up as a swimmer, a swim coach, all that stuff. And I had taken off swimming for like 10 years. I finally got back into the pool kind of at the start of the year. And now all the Ys are closed. The YMCA closed. So the quarantine's actually hurt me. It's been a bummer. So Good,
I know.
Good for you to keep throwing it up, though. That's all right.
Yeah, trying. Just, 4 or 5 sets heavy. I just need to do it every now and then. It's good.
That's good.
And my wife is a personal trainer, so she kills me normally. She just like we're doing burpees till the cows come home down in our basement. So I got to get a little fun in every now and then.
Well, so you transition into broadcasting after 7 years in the NFL and just a nice NFL career and a great college career and winning a Super Bowl and overcoming all that you overcame. What was that like, though, kind of finishing your football career? How was that transition? Because everybody goes through a different experience with that. What was that like for you? It
was hard. And anyone who tells you it's not hard is lying to you. I did everything that I thought I could do to prepare for it. I was an undrafted guy, partially because of, cancer limited what I was able to do on the field afterwards, but I was undrafted. So, I never know how long my career was going to be. So every time we had, a little break from football in the summers, I'd do internships and did internships at venture capital firms at JP Morgan, did, internship at, different radio things, and, just tried to keep seeing what I wanted to do and getting connections and all that stuff. Man, when it ended, it was still like, I felt like I could play more. I felt like I went out, like I had a great preseason and just coaching changes kind of limited that. And I felt like I could play more, but I also had told myself since I was a young pup in the league that I was not going to be a guy that sat out a year and then trained and tried to keep going and try to make a little bit more of it. I was like, okay, when time is time, I'm going to move on. And we had just had our son at the time. And so there was a lot of joy at home. So that definitely helped. But, a lot of times for me, I equated kind of, some of my worth to, what I did, built a lot of identity around that, and realizing my identity in God. That was the first thing I had to do, which was great to have the time to do that. Reconnected with a lot of people in my church, which was fantastic. And then try to decide what I wanted to do for a living. And I did, went and did interviews in New York and got a couple of job offers on Wall Street. And was just getting crushed by the commute and saw how much time I'd be away from my family. I was like, man, if I could just do something else where I could, at least be with my son. And I put this, I didn't write it on paper, but, just a mental pro and con chart of all the things. And the one thing that I wanted more than anything was to be with my family. So if I had made less money and was with my family more, then that was the choice I was going to make. So, money became something that I took off the table of hey, let's just see what I would like to do without money being involved. And this opportunity came up with ESPN and the ACC network and launching that. And man, it's awesome. ESPN been great. I've loved covering it. The people have been awesome. And then I get to spend time with my son, and he gets to watch me on TV for a few minutes before he goes to bed. It's just it's a lot of cool stuff that's been coming along with this. And, obviously the things I said before about getting to know these players, just, it makes everything really worth it to be away from home.
Oh, that's great, man. And I love the ACC network. I thought first year, tremendous. The analysts, the personalities, the coverage, really, really strong. So it's kind of a bummer that we're not getting all the,
I know,
the live action right now, but some replays and stuff. But yeah, no, it's exciting for you. I'm so happy you landed with them, and being a part of a launch of a network is really cool too. Still a part of ESPN, but the ACC network, that's a neat opportunity. So that's the timing of all that for you is really cool as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so of course in a couple weeks we get the NFL draft. That's going to be way different this year. It'll be interesting for sure. But you alluded to the fact that you were undrafted, and I'm curious, as you look back all those years, what floods your mind from that experience of hoping to get drafted, going undrafted, and ultimately landing with the Giants?
Again, another way that God kind of does his thing in the background that you don't really want to see it happen, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, this makes sense. So I actually, I kind of had an interesting undrafted story because, I've been invited to the draft. So, as a player, then I wasn't going to get drafted in the first round, but because I probably would have been a first round pick the year before, and obviously it was a big story in the college football community with overcoming cancer. So I was invited to the draft and went and participated in all the things that the guys do. And it was in New York, and we rang the stock exchange bell, and just like a really cool, fun experience. And it was wild. All the guys, they're in their suits. They're nice suits that they get given a nice suit, and then they try to rope you into buying like 6 or 7 more afterwards. But they're in their suits and they're walking up, and they know they're going on stage to get drafted. And it was really kind of interesting because I knew I was going there and I wasn't going to get drafted that day, right? I was going to probably get drafted the next day or the day after. And so there was a camera crew following me because we were doing a feature for Gatorade was doing something, a feature on the internet. So did that. Had the camera crew with me the whole time. That day comes and goes, and go out to dinner and celebrate all this fun stuff. The next day we go to we're going up to my brother's spring football game at Brown University, and so I'm there, and the camera crew's there, and I think this is when the draft was 2 days, and basically the entire day went by, and my phone did not ring one time. I did not get one call. And it comes and goes, and the camera crew's there, and they're asking me, what's it feel like? How's it feel? This and that, and then it was, first of all, it was like I want to say I was mad, right? That's like my initial. It was embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You have, and I feel for guys because as great a career as they might have in the future, in that moment, in that day, they're with their families. That everybody's like hoping for them, and they have this feeling of, hey, at least I had this feeling of, man, I let everybody down. It's embarrassing, man. It was this burning kind of sensation in my body. It was just like you get hot and flushed because you're embarrassed. Like that's how I felt, and it was just hard. And then we moved on, and there was no football. It was during the lockout year. Yeah, so I went back down and trained in Florida at IMG Academies and stayed there for another 2 or 3 months until get a call in July saying, hey, do you want to come and play for us? And it was, I got a call Andy Reid, and Tom Coughlin said to me, he said, hey, Mark, I know your story, and it's an amazing story, but I don't want you on my team because of your story. I want you on our team because I think you can help us win a Super Bowl. And I was like, I felt seen, right? I felt seen for, my football rather than just a story. And so, I went there, and it worked out obviously swimmingly because, got to win a Super Bowl my rookie year, and ended up starting a bunch of games towards the end of the season. This was really great, and I ended up having my whole career with the New York Giants and raising my family in the suburbs of New York. So this is kind of goes with God's plan.
Gosh, that's awesome. And so, kind of through that, you mentioned that was a tough time. What was your faith like going through all of that and the waiting, and how did God ultimately kind of reveal himself in the midst of that?
Yeah, it was, there was the need for just like focusing on the things that, I can control and I can, handle myself in these situations, and continuing to work and getting stronger and better and staying prepared. And then being comfortable with letting God handle the things that I can't handle myself, all the things that are up in the air that I have no control over, I have to let it go. So, I want to say externally, I showed that, broke out in acne all over my face because I think I was so stressed out. Wow. I mean, it just like I've had physical reactions to the stress, but I could always come back to the center, right? I could always come back to that center place of like saying, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay.
That's awesome. No, I love it. And I think a lot of guys will resonate with those feelings because the hope and dream is to get drafted in the next couple of weeks. And a lot of guys will go undrafted. But just like your story, I mean, how many guys have been undrafted and have tremendous NFL careers and Hall of Fame careers and Super Bowl winners and all that? And it's fun to root for those guys, too, because they're the underdog, too. But
yeah, and I think that, and that's the biggest thing is when doesn't matter where you get drafted, when you get drafted, the thing to remember for anybody is where the round you get drafted in, basically you get tokens. It's like a token, right? So if you're in the first round, you get 10 tokens. If you're in the second round, you get 9, all the way down to undrafted guys, you get like 2.
Yeah.
And those are your screw up chances.
Yeah.
Those are your chances to screw up. If you screw up as a first rounder, you have to give one of your tokens in. You got about 9 more shots.
Yeah.
But when you're an undrafted guy or a late round guy, you got like 1 or 2 tokens, so you can't mess up. So you just gotta, you gotta stay the course. You gotta, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut. Like you gotta just, do the things that they need you to do, and don't make waves and try to do things yourself. So like regardless, like that has nothing to do with your success, right? Like you could be a first rounder and keep those 10 chips your entire career, and those are the guys who are really great. You could be you could be an undrafted guy, and you can gain more chips. Like you can probably get chips as the years go on, right? But like it's what you do when you get there, and so that like position and round, even more so today than ever before. The money is going to be there again later, so like that doesn't need to be a worry. So yeah, man, like the guys who work hard, you can tell when they come in the building, when the guys who work hard, the guys who are humble, the guys who, can buy into what the team is about and that are hungry to succeed. Those are the guys who make it and have long careers.
Yep. It's fun to see for sure. Well, man, I could talk all day, and there's so much more we could get to, but we'll wrap it up. And I just want to ask you one more thing, because I'm here in Charlotte, Panthers country, and Luke Kuechly just retired, your former teammate. What comes to mind when you heard the news and just kind of the realization that, man, the NFL is not going to have Luke Kuechly anymore?
I know so I think that, gosh, he had like a tenacity, right? You must have loved watching it. Just as a linebacker, it's easy to watch film and be like, man, that guy's not as good as he really is. Everybody says he is. And then you'd watch Luke and be like, gosh, I want to play like him. Like, I just like, man, he is just so good. And, he never was dirty, right? Like in the traditional sense of dirty, but he just played hard to the end of the whistle, right? To all the way. And so, I mean, he had that about him. And I think that, after talking to him, we had dinner at Super Bowl and hung out and just talking to him. I think he just realized his body was not going to allow him to do that, right? Yeah. And I look at that as like totally a sign of maturity, right? A guy who is able to understand that, man, my body's just me to do this at my best level anymore, and I don't want to deplete my skills. So I'm going to walk away and start my next career. So I think, like I said before, I'm sure it was hard for him. You could tell on his face it was hard for him. But I think he's kind of excited to start the next chapter of his life, whatever that may be.
Definitely. Hopefully he sticks around in Charlotte and he'll still be a part of the community. But he's definitely a Panthers legend, that's for sure. So, man, well, cool to have you on the show today. I've wanted to have you on for a long time, so this is a real treat, and excited for your broadcasting career and fatherhood and all that guys doing in your life. So thanks for coming on, unpacking it today.
Yeah, Bryce, appreciate it. Maybe we'll do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Sounds great. There's Mark Herzlich joining us here on Unpacking It.
Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
How great is he? Got to be one of my favorite guests of the year, and just one of my favorite guys to talk to. And we talked on Google Hangout, so I got to see him, and just the interaction was really cool. So I appreciate his heart, and I asked him some tough questions, and just some things that we all wrestle with, especially with what we're facing right now in our world. And going back to his point on, him thinking, having to overcome the thought of, God gave me this cancer because he was mad at me. And I just think that that's not the right thinking. And so I'm so thankful that he overcame that. And I think growing up, in my own faith journey, there were times where I thought when something bad happened to me, it was God, punishing me and he was mad at me. And I really think we have to grow out of that mentality into understanding God's love and grace and resting in that and recognizing that bad things are going to happen, tough things are going to happen, and we're going to get hurt, we're going to get sick, we're going to have disappointments and discouragements, and they're not all God's going, gotcha, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you, I'm going to punish you here, I'm going to punish you there. But at the same time, there are times where we will be disciplined. When we choose sin and we go down, the wrong path, God's going to course correct us. And so he will allow things to happen in order for us to open our eyes and to see him and to be reminded of our need for him. And so it's tough with this kind of the discipline and the loving discipline. So we always have to go back to who he is as our Father. So he's not trying to hurt us. He's trying to love us well. And sometimes suffering and pain is used for us to recognize his love and his grace. But we have to remain rooted in that versus this vindictive, vengeful God that some people have led us to believe. And that's not, to me, the characteristic of the God of the Bible and the one that sent Jesus to pay our punishment. He put the wrath on Jesus. So it's finished. When Jesus said it is finished, God's wrath went to Jesus. And so now we have this ability to receive this forgiveness. And so when we walk with Jesus and follow him and know him and live our life with him and for him, God's not out to get us. He's not. He just wants us to know how much he loves us and how much his grace is available to us. And so I think we just have to change our perspective on how we view suffering. And as followers of Jesus, we will suffer. We will go through tough times. And again, there is some course correction at times, but there are amazing people that love the Lord that get cancer. And there are amazing people that love the Lord that are doing living a obedient life that still falls short, that will end up getting the coronavirus. And it's not God saying, you're the worst, you're getting it. You're the worst, you're getting it. Are you kidding me? That's not how God is. So I hope that we recognize that. And I would say this, we'll talk about America specifically. Has America become kind of off from being a Christ-centered country? Probably. Yeah, we've taken prayer out of schools and we've become more secular and that kind of thing. But there's always been a freedom of religion, and that's kind of what this country was founded on. But yeah, there was a Christ-centered, a Bible-believing focus at the beginning when the Pilgrims came and the early founders of our great country, and we've gotten away from a lot of that for sure. So is this God's wrath on our country by sending the coronavirus? It's not really for me to decide, but I don't think that adds up from what I gather. But what I will say is God is using this to draw people back to himself. So he sees the unfortunate situation. Okay, it's a broken world, and there is disease, and there are viruses that go on, and people have to go through certain pains because of it. But God's meeting us right there in the situation. He's turning it around for good. And he's saying, all right, I'm going to bring families back together. I'm going to have families have more dinner and more time together. People are going to work less. They're going to work from home. They're going to be around more. They're not going to be so caught up in busyness. And so he's using this all for good. So in many ways, maybe the coronavirus isn't a bad thing. So we say, oh, this is a wrathful thing. No, it's a great thing. So sometimes it's all about our perspective too, that, man, there's so much good that can come from it. And it's hard to think about in the moment. But man, if this Easter people are turning their hearts to the Lord because they're at home, they're on Facebook, and all of a sudden they start seeing sermons and people pointing to the cross and preachers encouraging people to turn their life around, that's a good thing. So if the coronavirus leads people to eternal life, to recognizing who Jesus is, then this is a wonderful gift. Maybe it's not even an unfortunate virus. It's a wonderful gift. And so we have to think about that. We have to consider that. And God's ways are higher than our ways. I say all of that we can't figure it all out. I don't have all the answers. But I do know that God is loving, and his grace is what we need, and it's what we need to rest in. And so the fear of the Lord is a reverence and honor to know that God is in control, that he is a just and perfect God. And in order for us to be in right standing with him, to know him fully and to be with him forever, it's through Christ and what he did on the cross. And it's a free invitation for all of us, regardless of what we've done in our past. And so we can know him and follow him starting today. And so let's rest in that good news. That is the good news of the gospel. And so that's the God that we serve. And so it's a loving, grace-filled God. Amen. All right, I'm preaching today. Get me going. Get me going on Easter weekend. That's right. There you go. There's today's show. Mark Herzlich, awesome guest. Thanks for joining me here on the Unpacking It podcast. As always, I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sins. He was resurrected, and through faith, I have been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It podcast.
For more information about the show, our events, and other resources, visit unpackinit.com. That's unpackinit.com. We hope you are encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. To support our show and Unpacking It Ministries with a financial gift, visit unpackinit.com/donate. We look forward to unpacking sports, faith, and life with you again next week.